Hey there, fight fans. Welcome to the SB Nation MMA post-fight show for UFC on ESPN Plus 12, Moicano versus the Korean Zombie, and also Bare Knuckle FC 6, Malignaggi versus Artem the Hammer, the Russian Hammer, Lobov. My name's Flying Brian J. On this post-fight show, I am absolutely solo, which means that you, the live commenters, are going to be my co-hosts. I think we're going to start on recapping and giving some thoughts on the Bare Knuckle FC event, giving some WTFs of the evening for the combat sports that happened tonight. There was a lot of it that went down. I don't even know the results of all of it. I only watched the UFC and Bare Knuckle FC events tonight. But let's dive into Bare Knuckle FC, where Artem the Hammer Lobov defeated Paulie Magic Man Malignaggi via unanimous decision. All three judges scored it 3-2 in favor of Artem. And let's get our what the F of the evening out of the way right now. After Artem Lobov opened up 3 cuts, one pretty gigantic cut on the face of Paulie Malignaggi, and was very respectful about his relationship, or about having spent some time in the squared circle with Paulie Malignaggi. Paulie said that he thinks he only got hit with one clean strike in that entire 10-minute bout. Okay. The cut that was, I believe, on the edge of his left eyebrow, you could have parked a Geo Metro in it. Not a bus. You couldn't have parked a bus or a truck, but maybe a small, compact car. He said that he did not get hit with more than one significant strike in the bout. How it happened, how it played out was Malignaggi had the straighter punches. I mean, he had some good clean jabs to the body of Lobov, and he was moving away, using some good defense. But Lobov was the one who was pressing forward the majority of the fight. He was landing the harder shots, and he was throwing with more ferocity than Malignaggi was. Malignaggi said that he broke his hand in the second round or some baloney like that. And I think that because Lobov was the more aggressive fighter, he was landing the more significant strikes on Malignaggi. He got the nod. And Malignaggi said that maybe the people watching, maybe the judges don't know what the heck they were looking at. He thought it was pretty clear that he won the bout. And he said that everyone that scored it for Lobov is an idiot. And he's apologized to his fans. Wow. What a weird ending for that fight from Paulie Malignaggi. I thought Artem Lobov handled it really well. He said, hey man, there was a lot leading up to it, but some people talk smack and then don't show up in the ring and actually fight. But Malignaggi showed up and he fought well, and I respect the guy as a fighter, and that's that. And that's really all he had to say about it. He said that all he cares about now is becoming the bare knuckle whatever division that was champion, and he wants to see his son. And he had his son in the ring like Donald Cerrone did with Danger after a few victories, wearing the headphones, the ear protectors, like you would expect a tiny little baby to wear. And it was a kind of a beautiful moment for Artem Lobov. Let's see, what do we got for comments? Rob says, he's get his cut list in a second. Mr. Super Chacho says, MMA fighter with a losing record beat a former boxing world champion. Paid programming. I predicted it and told you guys I should have bet it. Grimm's Grind says, Paulie looks like Lobov with the Snapchat baby filter on. Donald, the president, says, Paulie went about this like it was a sparring match with 16-ounce gloves. He barely fought. Yes, I agree. Probably had Artem reaching so many times but didn't throw. Artem was overextended a lot of times in the fight. In fact, to your point, Artem overextended himself so bad one time with a left straight that Paulie just kind of moved out of the way and tripped him. And the commentator's like, we're not going to call that a knockdown, are we? And I'm like, what? No, clearly not. He tripped him with his shoe, guys. Paulie didn't even throw a punch. He just played the Matador and tripped him. Obviously not a knockdown. Weird. Red Hood Gaming 12. Can I give you an overview of the fight? Yeah, it was Malignaggi playing defense, moving around, shaking his shoulders a lot, feinting a lot, throwing jabs to the body, and like just bouncing around, moving his feet just a ton, moving laterally. Lobov basically moving forward the majority of the time, like 80% of the time. Lobov was moving forward, throwing wide lefts, jabbing a lot, jabbing his way forward, throwing wide lefts to the body, left straights up top, right hooks, and he wasn't working Paulie over, but I thought he clearly won rounds 1, 2, and 5. And Malignaggi, Lobov won rounds 1. No, Lobov won 1, 4, and 5. Excuse me. There was one where Malignaggi landed a big right hand that snapped Lobov's face around like that, and spit flew out, and it was like the only good shot that Malignaggi won the whole time. I don't know. There's not a lot to talk about with that fight. Like, I thought maybe after Artem was clearly respectful of Malignaggi in his post-fight and everything like that, I thought maybe Malignaggi would be the same way, because at the very end of the fight, they shook hands, they hugged it out. While we were waiting for the judges' scorecards, they hugged it out a little bit, were showing respect. But I think that, well, also Malignaggi said he's not going to do this again. He's not going to fight in bare knuckle boxing again. He said maybe if he would have beat Lobov, he would have done it again. He can come back as like a defending or something like that, but he lost and he's not going to do it again. And I really thought he might be respectful back, because that might put an end to the horrendous back and forth battle of words or Twitter beef between Malignaggi and Conor McGregor. Evidently, Malignaggi's not ready to squash that yet. He still is going to let Conor McGregor live in his head rent-free. Platinum Goat Mike the White Tyson Perry says Paulie was such a sore loser. Yeah, that's the whole WTF of the night was Paulie Malignaggi. But could we expect anything less? Oi Yee says Paulie is so dumb for talking smack. He could have just been real. I don't get it. I like Conor McGregor's way of going about things like this is in the lead up to the fight. Yeah, he'll talk some mad smack, and he talks like almost too much smack and says some questionable things a lot, but in the post-fight, he's usually very respectful, except for the time when he was like, I'd like to take this opportunity to say I'm sorry to absolutely nobody. Most of the time, McGregor is pretty respectful in the post-fight, but not the case for old Paulie Malignaggi. Mr. Super Chacho says, I find it super funny how some MMA fans think bare knuckle is too brutal when they're huge Tony Ferguson fans. There was a lot of blood tonight. But let's talk about the co-main event of BKFC. If that's okay with you guys. I don't have too much to say about Lobov versus Malignaggi. I hope Malignaggi just skirts off into wherever he was before he came and had a sparring match with Conor McGregor, and I'll gladly watch Artem Lobov bare knuckle box again. That's where we're sitting with this. Who's he going to box? I don't know. Maybe Johnny Bedford. Artem Lobov versus Johnny Bedford, who on this card, not in the co-main event, but Johnny Bedford won the lightweight championship, which I think, I don't know boxing's weight classes, but let's talk about the co-main event. It was between Chris the Crippler Lieben and Dakota Cochran. Dakota Cochran, I think, is now 2-0 in bare knuckle boxing, not in BKFC, but just like bare knuckle boxing in general. The promotion that didn't pay a lot of people, Lieben fought there too, but Cochran knocked out the ghost of Johnny Hendricks. In this fight, Cochran defeated Chris Lieben, but it was a pretty tightly contested bout. There were a lot of fun things that Dakota Cochran was doing. A rear hand uppercut to left hook. He landed it a whole bunch of times. In fact, one of his left hooks seemed to take away the equilibrium of Chris Lieben a little bit, and who is a guy that's known for his chin. Very, very durable. But he took away the equilibrium, made Lieben's legs a little bit wobbly. And And Lieben, after that, and kind of the entire fight, after the first round, Lieben looked like he didn't really care to be there. He didn't seem like he wanted to be in the fight. All he really wanted to do was clinch up and do some hooks to the body and some short shots to the head from the clinch position. And after, like, as the fight went on, it seemed that Lieben was doing that to just kind of keep his wits about him and survive the bout. Other things, overhand rights were landing for Cochran. There were some left straights and left hooks, wide lefts that landed for Chris Lieben. But I think most of the fight, it was all about Dakota Cochran. I think he won 4-1, 4-1, and 3-2 on the judges' scorecards. In the post-fight interview, the interview guy was like, "Hey man, you knocked out Johnny Hendricks. Now you just beat another UFC legend. What's next for you?" And he's like, "Hey man, maybe give me another legend and then call me the Legend Killer or something. Hey, let's give a round of applause for Chris because he's pretty cool." And they're like, "Hey, so that was cool." And he's like, "Yeah, it was cool." It was the weirdest post-fight interview. BKFC was full of like weird moments on the microphone tonight. Coming back to Paulie Malignaggi for a second, they let him talk about the fight in the rearview mirror immediately after for a super long time. He just went on and on and on and on and on about how he didn't get hit and he thinks he broke his hand and these fans were stupid, and like that was a weird thing. The Dakota Cochran post-fight interview was strange. Interviewing the president in the ring after it was over was kind of weird. And then we went over and interviewed Jason Knight, who has a bout scheduled for August 10th against Leonard Garcia. Weird all around in the post-fight interviews. Grimm's Grind says, "I was at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut when Jacare guillotined him." Jacare guillotined who? Oi Yeet Yeet wants to know if Dakota Cochran did gay porn. He did do gay porn. I think it's his name. It was called Danny Does something. Anyway, little fun fact before we get on to talking about the UFC event, which was headlined by Moicano versus the Korean Zombie. Dakota Cochran went to the same college as I did. He's from Nebraska, and he used to pole vault for, I believe he's a pole vaulter for the University of Nebraska at Kearney Antelopes, the Lopers. Paid programming says the WTF moment was when you realize there's an ad for weed shop on the boxing mat. I didn't realize that at all. Oh, yeah, Mousasi. They're talking about Mousasi getting guillotined by Jacare. Did Mousasi lose via decision? There were times when, and we're skipping around all over the place, Bellator London happened early in the day. Like the main event was happening during the UFC prelims, but it was on tape delay, which is just ridiculous. It's 2019. Why in the world? There's another WTF. Having fights in 2019 on tape delay. What the F? Anyway, I watched some of the Mousasi versus Rafael Lovato Jr. fight, and it seemed like Rafael Lovato Jr. was getting Mousasi down early at will. Mousasi was doing a good job defending the transitions and the submission attempts from Rafael Lovato, but as the fight went on, Mousasi was able to defend those takedowns, and I was thinking, if that fight were, I know this is something that you can't do because the fight is not taking place under Pride rules, but if it were taking place under Pride rules, the guy that's super tired and like doing almost nothing toward the end of the fight should lose, right? Doesn't matter if you get takedowns and control early on. If you're struggle busting it at the end, the other guy should win. Anyway, yeah, Bellator has a new middleweight champion. His name is Rafael Lovato Jr. Meds, J says Gegard did the most damage, to be honest. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Anyway, I wasn't focused on that fight. I was focused on the UFC event. So that's going to transition us into the UFC event, which is headlined by Renato Moicano versus Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie. The Korean Zombie finished the fight at 58 seconds of round number 1 via TKO. Before we talk about the ins and the outs of that fight, the very few that there are, before we talk about doing our post-fight bonuses and talk about Randy Brown versus Brian Barberina and all that jazz, I want to know what you would give a post-fight rating for. Let's just go with this entire day of combat sports. So the UFC, Bellator's dual card, and bare knuckle boxing. I don't understand why we put them all on today. Why didn't Bellator do their Friday thing? Or why didn't BKFC do it last night? I don't know. But what rating would you give the entire night of fights? Combat sports, UFC, Bellator, BKFC. Mr. Super Chacho 77, I give it a weird out of 10. Meds Comet J says, yeah, there was too much combat today. Grimm's Gold says, I give it a B for combat. Legendary on 99 says solid 8. El Toro Loco says a 10. Kostya Suz says, sometimes life is fair. Lobov is the man tonight. Rob Amon a 7. Shane Ryan, UFC was great. To be honest, all fights were good. 7 out of 10. Meds Comet J, 7.5 out of 10. Marcus McGahee, the UFC gets a 9 plus. Mike Perry says 8.3. I don't know. The UFC event wasn't all that great. Andre Ewell versus Anderson Dos Santos was a lot of fun, even though it went to a decision. Andrea Lee versus Montano De La Rosa, even though it went to a decision, was quite a bit of fun. Kevin Aguilar losing to Dan Ige was a lot of fun too. Luis Pena showing out was a good time. Jairzinho Rosenstruik getting the knockout in 9 seconds over Alan Crowder was pretty fun. Lucky's Cut says, I had Randy Brown and Zombie, made $10 out of 10. I made that $10 out of 10. Nice. Paid programming, I don't know, 8. Kostya Sue says, oh, come on. The UFC card was very fun, just no names. Shane Ryan, yeah. Darren Wynn versus Eric Spicely was a good time. Okay. Yeah, I'll give it you guys talked me into it. I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10. I did pretty well on my gambling tonight as well, which is, cool for me. Pat on the back. Let's talk about the main event of the evening. Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie, versus Renato Moicano. They got out there. Chan Sung, I think he threw like a left hook, a low kick, and then he just kind of stood there. I described it on my live feed as looking like the logo for the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. Just kind of standing there, a little bit. Started to move a little bit. Very little. Renato Moicano was moving, kind of bouncing on his feet side to side, doing some things. Threw a jab. Korean Zombie ducked under it, came up with an overhand right, caught Moicano right on the jaw, knocked him down. On his way down, Chan Sung Jung hit him with a left hook, really took the lights out of Moicano. But then the Korean Zombie took the back of Moicano and was like in a kind of a rear naked choke position, got double hooks in. Moicano wasn't fully on the ground. And the Korean Zombie goes for a freaking can opener from the back. And I don't know if that's what you call it, but he's pressing his head like toward his chest really freaking hard. Like that felt really good to do that, stretch my upper back. But man, Moicano could not have liked it. Then Moicano got flattened out, and Chan Sung Jung hit him with a few right hands, got the TKO, 58 seconds of round number 1. Amazing performance from the Korean Zombie. And then what a great comeback from his knockout loss via up elbow to Yair El Pantera Rodriguez. What's next for Chan Sung? I don't know. Who cares? We're going to watch whatever fight he decides to put on, right? Man, that was amazing. And it put Renato Moicano on his first 2-fight losing streak of his career. He got finished via TKO by Jose Aldo, now to the Korean Zombie. I don't think it's a real knock on the future of his career or anything like that. I think he's got a lot of potential. He's an athletic guy, a long guy for the featherweight division. And, he got knocked out early here. There wasn't a lot that we could see from it. I don't think that it's a testament to his chin. I just think Chan Sung must hit like a bus. Legendary on 99 says KZ versus Cater, Stevens or Emmett. I'd watch everything. Yeah, I'd watch it all. I'd absolutely watch all of that. Meds Comma J says Moicano has looked chinny. I didn't realize that. If it's true, maybe we could have concerns from him. He's a pretty young guy. He's 30. I don't know. Yeah, I'd like to see Calvin Kattar versus the Korean Zombie. That'd be a lot of fun. I'd watch that. I'd watch the Bean. Thanks, paid programming. Reminder, if you like the content, please give the video a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel. It would help me continue doing what I love doing, which is being here talking to you guys. Let's talk about the co-main event of the evening, Randy Brown versus Bryan Bam Bam Barberena. Barberena had trouble with the range of Randy Brown. Randy Brown's long kicks and were trouble for Barberena. When Barberena would get in tight, go for a Brown was slapping him with some elbows to the side of the head, also dominating the 50-50 underhook position, pushing Barberena up against the fence, working the body. The long teeps to the midsection were hurting Barberena, ripping left hooks to the... Man, my stream died. Are we back? My stream died for a bit there. I don't know what y'all missed out on, but I was saying Randy Brown put on a masterclass performance. Since we always give out 5 performance bonuses, or a total of $250,000, because we're not actually giving anybody any money at all, I think we're going to be looking at Randy Brown to get our 5th post-fight bonus, right? Maybe. Let's talk about our post-fight bonuses right now, if we can. Sorry for my internet's been lagging today. I don't know. We've had a lot of crappy weather around lately. The power went out at my job yesterday morning. Maybe that's what's going on. Meds Common Jade, give it to Meatball. Paid programming can't give out 5 performance bonuses because he didn't see all the fights. But what would you guys give for your 5 post-fight bonuses? June is here and she has given us the official ones. The performance of the night went to Jairzinho Rosenstruik and the Korean Zombie, 50,000 each. Fight of the night went to Darian Nguyen versus Eric Spicely, which was the first fight of the night. Michael Bisping was even commenting while it was happening, because it was a pretty entertaining bout, that not often does the first fight of the night get the fight of the night bonus, but he was thinking this one might get it, and he was right. The very first fight of the night was awarded the fight of the night bonus, so each one of those guys get an extra $50,000. And I would give the extra 50, the another 50, because we give out the 5. I'd give it to Randy Brown. I think that was a really, really good performance against Bryan Barberena, and he was a plus 200 underdog. I thought Barberena was going to win with his volume. I'm a big fan of Barberena, so there's that. No one else wants to chime in with their post-fight bonuses, I guess. Let's talk about... Legendary on 99 says, let's give the extra bonus to Paulie Malignaggi's extremely long post-fight interview. He calls it a post-fight podcast. Yikes. Yeah. Let's talk about Darren Nguyen versus Eric Spicely, first fight of the night. So this was Darren Nguyen's UFC debut. The guy is 5'6", fighting in the middleweight division. Eric Spicely came in here on short notice and lost the decision. But at times showed some good skills against Darren Nguyen. But Nguyen was putting the volume on Eric Spicely. Nguyen would often back up Eric Spicely up against the cage and unloaded a barrage of punches on Eric Spicely. Spicely would just stay shelled up against the fence, and Nguyen would left hook to the body, right straight to the body, work it up top, uppercut, hooks around the guard, just a ton of volume from Darren Wynn. But there were times in the clinch at space when Spicely would get maybe one plum clinch and hit Wynn with an uppercut, or a lot of the time, because Spicely's so much taller than Wynn, knees to the face of Wynn. And I believe it was the third round, Spicely hurt Wynn, was unable to go for the kill, but because there was a lot of ebb, a lot of flow, there was an almost a finish and then not a finish, and a really good performance put on by Darren Wynn. That's why it was awarded Fight of the Night bonus, an extra $50,000 to each. Wynn, in his post-fight interview, he said, "That one is for all of you guys who say I'm too short for this division. Watch these tiny little legs run right to the top of this division." Guy's 5'6". I'd still like to see if he could cut down to 170 pounds. The commentators were comparing him to his training partner, Daniel Cormier, at American Kickboxing Academy, in that he's short and stocky for the division, and it's worked for guys like Kelvin Gastelum. But man, I don't know. 5'6", 185 pounds. That's a fire hydrant. He was able to keep the pace. I sure would like to see if he could cut to 170 pounds. Maybe not, whatever. Another performance on this card that I was really impressed by. Meds J says the cardio does not look that good on Wynn. He was putting on a lot of pace early on. A ton of strikes landed. We could probably see. Let's see how many strikes he landed. Darren Wynn landed 171 total strikes. 169 of those significant. So, yeah, Meds J, he could have paced himself better. And what I think is, like, he's saying, I'm going to run to the top of this division. He was fighting a guy who had been cut from the UFC already. I know, I like Eric Spicely. He has a win over Thiago Marreta Santos and Alessio Di Chirico. But his record's really spotty. He lost 3 in a row in the UFC, all finishes, before going on to have a couple of TKO finishes in the CES. Yeah, great win by Darren Wynn, but I want to see him against a little higher level of competition, somebody who's been in the UFC's middleweight division longer, as a staple there, and isn't coming in on short notice, having already been cut from the UFC. You know what I mean? He does hit pretty hard, as Marcus McGay, he says. But, yeah. I was going to mention a fight that I was impressed with. But let's talk about Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who got a performance of the night bonus for knocking out Alan Crowder in 9 seconds. First of all, it took Rozenstruik only 9 seconds, a jab, and then a single hammer fist to knock out Alan Crowder. And Alan Crowder gave Greg Hardy all that Greg Hardy could handle. Maybe that doesn't speak to Greg Hardy's talent or where he will eventually be in mixed martial arts, but to me that says a lot. And I would also like to see Jairzinho Rozenstruik fight Greg Hardy after Juan Adams fights Greg Hardy, win or lose, because I think Rozenstruik would crush him, and I want to see Greg Hardy get crushed. Rob Amon says Crowder might be cut. Meds, J says Crowder is cut. Crowder's cut. You cut Crowder. He was brought in. Wasn't he brought in? He was already cut from the UFC once, right? And he was brought in to lose to Greg Hardy. Now he gets knocked out in 9 seconds. You gotta go. Eddie Cagle, who won, Pauly or Lobov? Did it take place yet? Okay, we'll talk about that one more time for just a little bit. The main event of Bare Knuckle FC 6 was Pauly Malignaggi versus Artem, the Russian Hammer, Lobov. And Lobov defeated Malignaggi, unanimous decision, 3-2 on all judges' scorecards. Because Malignaggi was just being defensive for a lot of the fight, moving on his back foot. In Bare Knuckle, it seems that the guy who's moving forward a lot is going to be the guy who gets the decision. And Lobov was causing more damage on Malignaggi. If you just look at their faces at the end of the fight, you knew who won. there was a huge cut on the inside of the left eyebrow, I believe, of Malignaggi. He also had a cut on the opposite side of his face, and there was a smaller one by his nose. And Lobov just had a small one on like his, where he would flare your nostril. And Paulo Malignaggi says he's not going to fight again in bare knuckle boxing. He's probably done with combat sports. Yeah, me too, Eddie. But back to the UFC event, which is the main focus of this post-fight show. We talked about BKFC at the beginning. I might not have covered it that well. In fact, if I was giving a post-fight rating for myself doing play-by-play for the BKFC event, it wouldn't be a very good grade. It was my first time commenting on a boxing match of any kind live. I've not watched that much boxing. There's so many subtle counters that happen. It's harder to see than in mixed martial arts. You know, a Muay Thai knee to the face is very evident. A short check hook in boxing is more difficult for me to see, and it's even more difficult to say it out loud live while it's happening. So my live play-by-play, I would give myself I don't know, a D or something. I can do better. I will get better. Stanley Moon says he had Artem winning 3, 4, and 5. I had him winning 1, 4, and 5, so pretty close. Adam Robbins, yes, 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 awesome. Not the fight, but the outcome. Yeah, thank goodness Paulo Malignaggi lost. I think most mixed martial arts fans can agree. Good riddance to Paulo Malignaggi. I hope we never have to talk about this fool again. Thanks a lot for telling me that I'm decent, guys. Paid programming. Meds, J. Appreciate it, guys. Let's talk about at least one more fight on the UFC event before we can maybe get out of here for this week. I know you guys want to talk about 2 more, probably. Andrea KGB Lee versus Montana De La Rosa. I was impressed with Lee's takedown defense, submission defense, and also submissions of her own. I was a little disappointed in maybe her fight IQ. I don't know if she wanted to prove a point to Montana De La Rosa, but what I mean by that, I'll touch on that first, is that toward the end of the fight, De La Rosa had either an anaconda, probably an anaconda locked on Andrea Lee. She was able to fight her way out of that, but stayed on the ground with the fighter who had won like 8 out of 10 fights via submission. De La Rosa tried for an omoplata, didn't get that. Tried for an armbar, didn't get that. So very good defense in that regard by Andrea Lee, but I would have liked to seen her stand up from that. Her takedown defense was amazing. She was able to get her hips away, dig for underhooks on De La Rosa right away, get her up against the fence or reverse position on the fence, and then get off on way better striking. Andrea Lee's kicking game and overall striking attack was just too much for De La Rosa. I think there were a few knees in tight that Lee landed on De La Rosa that had De La Rosa's eyes like red, like if you didn't sleep for a long time and you wake up and it's kind of black under your eyes, in that spot, De La Rosa's face was, her eyes were really red early on in that fight, and she had a lot of blood on her, dripping from her face. It was getting on her white rash guard shirt that she was wearing, and Lee put quite a bit of damage on her. In the post-fight interview, Michael Bisping asked what was next for Lee, and she didn't know. She's just like, give me whatever. Meds, J. If De La Rosa couple wants to stay in Texas while staying in the UFC, they should move to Fortis MMA. Otherwise, they'll need to leave Texas and join a better team. Rob Ammon says De La Rosa is now a gatekeeper. Yeah, maybe. She lost for the first time in 2 years. She lost to Cynthia Calvillo via TKO back in January of 2017 at LFA 1. And then she went on a 4-fight win streak officially. I think she had one Ultimate Fighter win. She lost a decision to Nico Montano. She has submissions over Rachel Ostovich and Nadia Kassem, where she got a performance of the night in the last one. But yeah, I thought that was a great performance from Andrea Lee. And I like to see her fight again. She's on a long win streak. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in a row. Most of them decisions. I also mentioned that like she had some decent offensive submission game going on. Did Andrea Lee? She fought off one takedown attempt with a Kimura grip that got De La Rosa to stop going for the single leg. Yeah, all around impressive performance from Andrea Lee. Meds Kama J says that she looks really well rounded, and I agree. Luis Pena defeated Matt Wyman. Matt Wyman came back from a 4-year layoff. Pena finished him TKO in round number 3. It looked pretty evident that Pena was on his way to a finish victory early on. The fight started and Pena went out there, hit a couple of flying knees on Wyman. Wyman didn't have much answer for anything that Pena did. Pena got him on the ground, was hitting him with some ground and pound. Wyman searched for a knee bar or a leg lock to kind of reverse the position on Pena and maybe actually look to submit Pena, but it just got him some hammer fists from ground and pound from Pena and not a lot else. Eamon says give Wyman a debutante next. Maybe Wyman should retire. He was gone for 4 years. He's 35. He had a lot of gray hair. He looked kind of soft and thin. I don't need to see him again, if I'm being honest. Wyman was too rusty, says Rob. I've been talking for like 6 straight hours. I know that there's more that we could touch on with the UFC event, and we could poo-poo on Paulie Malignaggi some more and talk about Artem Lobov and his great victory. But I think I'm going to get out of here for this week, guys. I'm sorry for cutting it short. You can listen to the audio only of most of my post-fight shows and my live play-by-plays by searching for Flying Brian Show, wherever you listen to podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iTunes, or Apple Podcasts. Or you can search for Bloody Elbow Presents and my cohort June, along with Crooklyn, Steffi Haynes. They put them on the Bloody Elbow Presents podcast feed as well. So you can listen to the audio only there. I appreciate you guys for being there. Follow me on Twitter at Flying Brian J, Facebook Flying Brian Show, and I'll see you guys next week where sorry for stumbling over my words, where we will be talking about UFC on ESPN 3, headlined by Francis the Predator Ngannou and Junior Dos Santos. Co-main event is Jussier Formiga versus Joseph Benavidez. A couple of the only remaining flyweights in the UFC, like 2 of 9. Before that, Damian Maia versus Anthony Rocco Martin. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. I'll see you next week. Namaste.